Hey, this is Tutorials, and I'm going to be talking to you about the Shadow Keybinding Guide. And because there's two different main types of keyboards that I've looked at, the regular keyboard and then the Logitech G13, I'm going to show you a way to keybind both of them. And so this is my Infiltration shadow. It could help a little bit with the other shadows, but this will be the main concern. And along with these two keyboards, I will be using a mouse, and it will have two side buttons along with the regular ones. Alright, now quick theory behind why I keybind. It's faster, and because you can do things faster and more cleaner, you can do more damage and not die as much. And the keybinding works best if you're able to understand things and make patterns. So make patterns in your mind, not just clicking a random key. If it makes sense to you, then you'll remember it in battle. And also you want to make your most used moves the easiest to click. That way you're not scrambling between three keys on your move you use all the time. And just a quick thing about my toolbar, I don't click toolbar more than I can help it, but I have set up my toolbar into many ways. I have more of my melee moves here, my mid-range and long-range moves here, a lot of stuns here and stealth along here, and on the bottom I have my speed increase, my taunts, throw the hut ball, and then all of the buffs that I can use. And also you can notice that I've set these things, when I was clicking, I set them close to each other. Like right after stealth, I usually did mind maze, or once I did force potency, I did breach, and because they're near each other, it might help you just know how to use them together. Alright, now we're going to get into the key binding, just a general thing. There's certain keys on your keyboard that can be used in combination with other keys. I'm going to call these combination keys for the purpose of this video. They're called Shift, Control, and Alt. And for example, holding the Shift key down does not do anything, but if you hold the Shift key down and do W, Shift W, that does something. And so what I use, alright, just a general thing, and then we'll dive into it more specifically. The right click for your no force attack. For me, that's my saber strike. So when I'm looking over someone or someone's gonna cap a door or an objective, I can quickly look over and stop them without having to worry about rotational. Then obviously my left click is just to click on things. My scroll wheel I use for stuns, so that means my click, and this is scroll wheel down, so when I hold the scroll wheel down, that is stun. And I've come up with kind of a unique way of targeting, and most people I think use tab for targeting, but I've come up with a way that you can scroll up for target nearest enemy and scroll down for target nearest ally. So scroll up for enemy, down for ally. And I use the combination with the scroll wheel. I do that with a lot of my panic abilities, I like to call them. They're like my shields, my deflection, my battle readiness, the different stims that can regain my health that way. If I'm in trouble, I can quickly scroll and do a lot of moves, my panic abilities really quickly. Alright, so that's that. Now we're going to get into the specific types of attacks. So just clicking without any combination keys, just clicking on the two side buttons should activate your most used abilities, or sometimes I like to think of them as building moves, right? Clairvoyant Strike for us. You don't really use it for itself very much, but you use it to build Circling Shadows, Clairvoyance, all that type of stuff that can help you do stronger moves better. So that's on my second, or the farthest from the computer, closest to me, that button. And then on the forward side button I use for my Shadow Strike. Again, both building kind of base moves, not really getting into too much detail there. Like when I didn't do any combination keys, my moves did something on my forward, back, side mouse button. When I hold any of the combination keys down, they do a different type of move. For example, when I hold shift down and do the forward side mouse key, it does this different move. When I do it back, when I shift and then do the backside button, it does a different move. Fortunately, that's my spinning strike, so I can't show it to you right now, but just think of it as you know it at this point, so I don't really have to show it to you. So that's my shift forward, and then this would be my shift back. So the next set of combination keys is control, and so control I usually do, I set force breach on my control, set my force, sorry I had to build up the attack again, breach on my control forward, potency on my control back, and so then that way I can do a quick breach, on my control forward again. And I know what you're thinking, I said that all of these wouldn't be on my forward mouse click, these would be solely for attacks, but just because we can very quickly breach, cast potency, and then breach again, I like having them together, it just makes sense for me. The third combination key, Alt, these are my AoE attacks. So on my Alt forward side mouse button, it would be force wave, and then it would be whirling blow on my back. And so again, when I think AoE, when I'm in the middle of people, I just think, okay, AoE attacks now, or if I single someone out, whatever. But when I think AoE, all I have to do is one button, and then I'll do my AoE attacks on that one button. Just like we used one combination key to change the side buttons, we can actually use two combination keys to change it. So again, when I had just no combination keys, the forward mouse button would be this. When I hit shift, it would be this. And now when I hit shift and control, it does an entirely different move, and I set this one to be my force slow. So I hit shift and then force slow. And for me, this is helpful when I'm chasing someone down. I can quickly just use the force slow, and then they're slow, and I can run up and attack them again. I actually don't have another move on my shift and control back. I just never really needed one. Yeah, I guess you could put something there, but I've bound just about everything else somewhere else, so I don't see the need for it. Then, just like we hold 2 down over here, I set my ranged attacks, my long range attacks, over on the control alt. So I'm just going to use potency to get some range. And so now I can quickly do Mind Crush on my alt control back, and then telekinetic throw on my control alt forward. And so again, that's, you don't use these moves very much at all as a counselor, but occasionally they're helpful. Especially Mind Crush is very little use, but might as well put it for that one situation you'll probably need one day. So again, Mind Crush is control alt back, and telekinetic throw is control alt forward. Alright, and that just about wraps up my attacks, almost. I'll get into the last couple in a second, but you can see that all of my moves are keybinded, and all of my big damaging moves are keybinded. So now you're probably asking, what about these stuns? So I have a bunch of different types of stuns. I like to classify them in different ways. Classifying them this way, or my way, helps like you use the same types of moves on the same keybinds for all your characters. I have a couple, so it helps me use the same general stuns even if they have different names and animations. So the first general, I guess you could call stun and interrupt, is Mind Snap for us, and we can use it at a fair amount of range, 10-meter range, and that just interrupts the target. Obviously the training dummy isn't going to do anything, but if I wanted, just pressing the scroll wheel down, like I talked in the beginning, just pressing that down without any combination keys interrupts his action. You can see the little waves around his head there for a second. But then again, combination keys, we can do more moves on the mouse wheel down, so when I get close to him, or at the same range, I can use shift plus mouse wheel click, and that'll be my standard. Most classes have them. It's the 6 second, right? 4 second damage, doesn't break it, just general stun, about a minute cooldown. My second type of stun, and Shadows do have a lot of stuns, is on my control, and this is just my damage breaking stun. It's called Low Slash, and it's a good move to get behind someone, but I'm not going to go into that very much now. So again, first stun is on, all of my stuns are going to be on the scroll wheel down, or the scroll wheel click I should say. And so the first one, Mind Snap, second one, Shift, is the force stun, Control plus the mouse or the scroll wheel click is low slash, and so then I have my fourth stun, force lift, and if you haven't guessed right now, it's my alt, so it has a decent range, and alt plus the scroll wheel down or the scroll wheel clicked is the force lift, and so that's just my stuns. Alright, if you're looking at my toolbar and you're probably thinking, what about that last attack? What about the spinning kick? Or, yeah, the spinning kick. And as you can see, it's set to tab, and I set this move apart because, as I like to think of it, it's my starting move, or like my opening move. Like when I come out of stealth, usually a good thing to do is a spinning kick. And for all my characters, usually have like a spinning kick equivalent. Like my mercenary has priming shot. Other classes have their other moves, but basically it's the move that you do first right in the middle of the battle and may not use too much more than that, especially this one because it can only be used out of stealth for me. Other classes like the tanks I think can use it out of stealth, but this one I can only use my spinning kick in stealth, so usually about once or twice per fight if I force stealth out. So now we go into the next kind of segment of my toolbar, right? Next we have the taunts, and Infiltration shadows, if you look at some of my other videos about their role, they're not really the tanking role, but for helping other teammates out, for getting medals, I often use taunts. And these are off the global cooldown, which means even if I cast something that has a quick cooldown, and you can see I can't cast anything until that bar reaches the bottom, click it now, it doesn't do anything. It will just do the next time the global cooldown is done. But the difference from this is that I can actually cast it and then use it before the global cooldown. And so because this is just kind of a different move, doesn't really go with the other ones, I set it not on the mouse button clicks, because again I try to make those my attacks. I set it to F and G. If you look at the regular keyboard, or if you look at mine, it's generally to the right of where my hands usually are. So if I'm going up to attack someone, right, I can quickly just hit F and not really worry about it, just move my finger over and keep my attacking. I don't have to worry about like combination keys or anything like that. Again, not our role, we just kind of want to click it quick and then keep doing DPS, which is our job. Alright, and so again, F is my quick one, and then G, the one with a longer cooldown. I have just one more over. You can hit both of them at the same time, which I usually like to do because they're right next to each other on the keyboard. You can hit them right in the middle of the two, hit them both, and then you're good to go. Alright, the stealth move. I usually keybind C to be kind of like the weird move, or I should say like the, not really an attack, not really anything, just your own little personal part of your class. And so for shadows, that's their stealth move. And I keybinded that to C and set, because that's like right under your finger, you just drop it down, drop your finger down, click it, and then you're good to go. It is on the global cooldown, so you don't want to do anything right after, but you could, that's something for another video. And what about freedom for stuns? Every class has a stun breaker, and for this one it's called Determination, I think, right? Or no, Force of Will. Determination is my bounty hunter. And if you're ever stunned, you break out of it, it has a cooldown. Resolve is another issue, but we won't go into that right now. So if I'm stunned, I set it to X, and it says I'm not controlled, which is why I can't do it. But again, instead of dropping my pointer finger down, I'm dropping my middle finger down. And so I said something about the right click button, right? I use that for my attack, but I also say it's clicked and someone's blocking my LOS, right? I can't see them, but I still have them targeted and they're still within range. And I want to do my little no force regain energy attack. I can set that as my, I think I could keybind it to F12, it doesn't really matter. This is mostly on the G13 keyboard, and I set it as, instead of moving my ring finger down or my other fingers down, like tab, I just pop my finger up. I just move my finger up for this. This Saber Strike, I think, right? Yep. We're going to talk a little bit more about the scroll wheel, and this is not the scroll wheel clicked like we used our stuns, but this is the scroll wheel rolled. And again, we already talked about target's nearest friend is scroll wheel down, and target nearest enemy is up. So just looking at this kind of area, I can, instead of having to go back and forth, I can quickly go down, up, down, up, down, up. And that's kind of helpful for the healing class a lot, for my merc, since he has a lot of heals. For my shadow, it's not super important, but it's still important to know, especially because if you're like running up to someone in stealth, right? You're up to stealth, maybe you had targeting your friend earlier, and you just go up to scroll up and you're ready to tab and start your Alright, so now we want to look into what the combination keys did, and as I mentioned kind of earlier in the video, these are like my buffs or my heals or something like that, so we'll just start from the bottom. In all my classes, they usually have some type of shield and some type of heal. For my merc, it might be like a shield and then like the heart, like the slowly regain health, I forget what it's called, but for us, it's deflection and force of will. I like to think of these as kind of like free moves. I don't waste money or comms by using them. You want to use them probably first, and when you're in like trouble or when you're losing health. Also, battle readiness is kind of cool because it also heals you a little bit. It increases the damage, the chance to trigger your techniques, so that's important. I usually do it when I'm in need though, rather than at the beginning, but if you do it as soon as you drop, 15% of your health, get up your health again, and then you're ready to utilize all of the battle readiness things. The second combination key, control, just like on all my characters, I have their main shield and health. Shield because shift, and I think of like scrolling out, like I'm projecting the shield in front of me, versus like shift, scroll down, like it's in me, I'm getting more health inside of me. It's the same type of thing with the control, right? I have these two things. The control wheel up is the damage reduction, right? It's like a shield almost, and then again health is scroll wheel down, the shield inside of me. And so again, I can do pretty much all of these really quickly, and that helps if you're stunned, you lose a lot of health, and you really need to regain a lot of health really quickly. Or I've used it multiple times when I'm in like the acid trap on the Quesh Hut Ball, and I'm losing a lot of health. Obviously, I can like force speed out of there, but I want to score. I can quickly scroll wheel and regain a lot of my health that way. And then the alt one, the alt for my other characters, the scroll wheel doesn't really do anything, but because you have stealth, it does something for us. And because of that, we can actually see it's my stealth, right? When I kind of think of it like you can see the alt and the C are really next to each other on the keyboard, right? That's C and then alt. And because you can use your alt scroll, it's like my force stealth, my panic stealth. And so you can go up, and again, I like have a mentality about it, right? Remember it. If you do alt wheel up, that's kind of like to everyone else you're unstealthed, and then you can cleanse all the negative effects, you don't get drawn out of stealth. So you do those really quickly before anyone can bring you out of stealth, and you're usually 9 times out of 10 in the clear. So again, just scroll up and down quickly, in less than a second. Since they're off the global cooldown, I just freed myself from anyone. And so now we're talking, next thing is about movement speed, right? For PvE purposes, and I'll only go through this really quickly because I want this video to be mainly PvP, I used it for the 2 keys near my thumb. So that's my regular mount, and then this would be my mount boost, and you can see that. But again, that's for PvE. For PvP, we can't use those, so I'm not going to worry about them. We do have one really good ability that you should utilize. I set it in my discipline to do a lot more things, so I wanted to set it somewhere I could reach easily. So again, we were talking about tab. You just is 1 finger up. My no force attack is one finger up. So again, my speed would be 1 finger up off the global cooldown, I think, which is really great. Yes, it is.
I took the liberty of dusting your quarters, Master. Your respiratory health is one of my top priorities.
Anyway, so the movement speed is quick R up, cleanses the slowing effects, which is good. Just good way to not really move out of your combinations, so that I can quickly, if I'm like doing a lot of moves, I can run up and do like different moves and stuff like that. Alright, now a quick thing into buff and heals. I don't think this is super important because, again, if you want to buff as soon as you die, and you want to heal when you're out of combat, so you don't want to really do it quickly. But just for the sake of keybinding, and I want to touch the keyboard at least as possible, if I move up my pinky, I can hit the buff, and I can do my heal by dropping it down one. Again, for the keyboard, I hadn't really taken the time to figure out an equivalent of that. I'm sure you could if you wanted to. I was playing around with something on the number pad and just having that for a quick move my thumb off the mouse and hit those, but again, you can figure that out for yourself. I don't really have a strong recommendation because I'm using the G13 now. The next thing to talk about, and this might seem a little silly, but throwing the hut ball is kind of important, especially if you're in hut ball. I like passing. I think it's great to pass a lot. As you can see from the beginning of my hut ball videos, I usually tell people to pass, and so I set that right under the space bar, and I forget what I keybinded it, but you can see just by dropping my pinky, I can hit the throw. And because of this is super important, and this makes passing so much easier. Before, if we want to pass the ball, it's like a little area of effect, right? So we have to go down, click this, and then bring our mouse up to like some platform where we're passing it. But the alternative is just hitting the key and having your mouse already ready and just clicking it. It makes it so much faster. I definitely recommend keybinding the hut ball, even though it might seem a little silly to do it. Alright, and then movement. I know this is kind of differs from the keyboards, the two keyboards. This is why I used it for last. I can technically move 3 ways. The first way is the way with the regular keyboard. I can use the WASD. I can strafe with these keys, which is something I'll get into later. I can turn, backpedal. Before you guys yell at me for backpedaling, I know it is slower, but it is also sometimes helpful. If you're right on top of someone and you want to shadow strike them, you can just backpedal really quickly and then shadow strike. Alright, and then my spacebar, obviously, is the spacebar here on a regular keyboard. And there's the second way you can move, and this is, I think, was originally keybinded by the game makers or whatever. It's by holding both mouse buttons down, and you can turn very quickly, move your camera up. And if you want to turn just yourself, you can use the right click, and if you want to turn your camera angle, you can use your left. I do use this occasionally if I'm like hugging a corner, if I want to like look over here and then immediately go that way. It's kind of hard to see. I'll do it again this way, and then you can immediately turn. It's good for cutting corners, and cutting corners is good for LOS. Alright. We covered just about everything, and this is just a kind of final wrap up almost. The next kind of thing you want to look at is on the GTN. You can buy the consumable credit bots, little grenades, and there's different types of grenades. I'm gonna talk about this really quickly, I promise. Shadows have a lot of different interrupts. You can tell 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interrupts. Do I really need a grenade that gives me another interrupt? Maybe not. At that point, their resolve bar would be so high that, okay, I get how doing the group stun grenade is very helpful, and I will probably buy them later on, but right now I'm saving my credits for augmenting, so I'm not going to get them. Unfortunately, well, the grenade that we do kind of need is the pyro grenade, and honestly, this is the cheapest damage grenade I could find at the market at the time. Basically, it's just a little grenade. I think it's very helpful maybe if you're like 20 meters away or something and see people about a cap and you can't do anything, your force speed's off cooldown or on cooldown, your force lift's on cooldown, you just need to stop their cap, maybe throw a grenade at them. And how would I do that? I set it as my F10 key, or I guess the G2, and there you can see that's the kind of animation for it. I can stop a cap that way. It's not, again, not something I would use more than an emergency, but an emergency it should do. And I'm sorry I skipped this, I'm going a little bit out of order, I try to organize it, but the next kind of thing I'll show you is the like in-stealth abilities or like transportation. I'll get into that. So the first one I'm going to look at is actually a stun, and I should have clumped this with the stuns, but honestly I don't really keybind this that much. I suppose I could keybind it, but in most cases I would not. It would be a little quicker, like say I'm stealthing out like a pylon or something, right? And there's a stealth guard and I'm trying to scroll wheel up to find them, and I finally found them. I can quickly, as soon as I find them, I can quickly do the shift plus control, mouse wheel down. Again, all of my other mouse wheels down did something, so I just did the next one. Could be useful, you decide. I think it might be a little helpful. I haven't really gotten into the habit of doing it yet. I should do that. And then the next thing I'll look at is the blackout, and this could technically be lumped under both a force regeneration and a damage reduction, and all classes again have some sort of like energy regain, force regain, whatever they call it in their little class, heat reduction if you're a merc. So I just set this to be a scroll because technically I think this is a force. I use it for damage reduction secondarily. Mostly it's for force reduction, and I'm just going to drain my force really quickly. This is not a good rotation. If you drain your force really quickly, let's say like 5 shadow strikes, you can quickly shift control mouse wheel up and regain some force as well as damage reduction. Last thing to talk about is phase walk, and this, if you don't know, its possibilities are endless. You can use it for movement, you can use it for getting out of trouble, you can get places quickly, guard, cap, you can do whatever. And honestly, I need to get into a better habit of actually using my keybind. I showed it to you, you noticed early in the video you can only see it, so I changed the look of it so you can see it now. And so basically it's my shift control mouse wheel up. I just talked about how this was my shift control mouse wheel down, but this is my shift mouse wheel up. Boom. And then you can go wherever you want within 16 meters. And say I'm in trouble, right? Here's the range of this. Alright, there we go. Say I'm in trouble, right? People are attacking me, or I want to get to somewhere quickly, I can just do a really quick shift control mouse wheel up. And I'm back. And again, I need to get into better in my videos. I actually don't really use the keybind for this, and I was working on getting comfortable with the other keybinds, which is another good point. If you're doing a lot of keybinding, it's hard if you just look at my video, suddenly you want to keybind because I convinced you. Again, it's faster, it's better. All of the amazing gamers do it. And if you suddenly want to keybind, you can't do everything at once unless you're very smart and have good memory and a lot of time on your hands. It might be good just to set all the keybinds and maybe just work on a couple things at once. Get comfortable with using the starting move, and just make sure that whenever you use a starting move, you only use tab, and you never cheat and click, because whenever you cheat, your body remembers it both ways and it's harder. Just totally forget about the clicking, forget about the muscle memory of moving your mouse over, and just worry about the clicking or like different moves. Next thing I would recommend is learning the base moves, which is your most used attacks. This will become very comfortable very easily because you just, thank goodness, I don't have to worry about clicking. I can just do the most used moves very often, then the next tier of things, and then all of your damaging moves. The tricky thing might be the stuns, because that takes practice using, because again, I really recommend the scrolling wheel for targeting. It's very, very helpful. But when you're doing stuns, you're actually pressing down on the ball wheel, and say I'm trying to stun him, right, and I press too far, I'm suddenly using deflection, and that takes practice, not pressing down instead of scrolling one wheel or another. I could be trying to use my alt and actually accidentally use battle readiness instead of what I meant to do, which was click on it. So finally, you might be asking yourself, how do these things work? And I can tell you, It works much better on the G13. I definitely recommend the keyboard. It's great. The movement takes some getting used to, but I really like the key bindings. To help you with the key bindings, just as an end note, think of playing the trumpet. And I've never played the trumpet, but I've seen people do it, and there's basically, as far as I know, 3 different keys, and you can use them in different combination with each other, but you still gotta blow on it to have any sound come out. And that's kind of like thinking you can press down the different combination keys, but only when you blow on it, or the equivalent hitting one of the mouse buttons, then actually something happens. So just something that might help, I don't know. And if you want to see how these things kind of flow together, I'll show you a quick demo right now. Again, you can look at any of my videos, and that might help you a little bit better. But this is just a quick video, and hopefully you can look at all the rotations. Notice my mouse never clicks on anything throughout the whole video, and just see how you like it, and hopefully it'll be good. Try to use all of my keybinds. So that just about wraps up the video. If you guys have any questions, any comments, or any suggestions, I really appreciate the feedback. I've learned a lot from people commenting on my video. Please keep doing it. Again, likes and subscriptions also really help.